I think it's a pretty well established fact at this point that you have 10 seconds or less to impress a new user on your website, or they're gonna leave and you're never gonna see them again. So if you're spending the first 6 or 5 or 4 seconds trying to get this page loaded and get it looking the way that you want it to look, you don't have any time left to actually sell them on what you're trying to push them through the funnel for. So what you need is a fast-moving website. But if you're on WordPress, this is a particular problem because there are so many plugins and bells and whistles that you feel you want or need to really get that look and feel that you want. Luckily for you, I'm gonna help you Marie Kondo that website today.
I'm so excited because I love this.
I'm gonna help you figure out which plugins you need to get rid of, help you identify what else is slowing down your site, and help you speed up this site generally to increase those sales. My name's Trent Kennelly, I'm a marketing strategist, and on this channel, I talk about everything that you can do to improve your business through marketing, sales, and analytics. So if that sounds good to you and you're excited, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to my channel if you're into it, comment and let me know what your GT metrics score is, and you're gonna understand what that is in just a second. You're about to find out. Otherwise, make sure that you stick around until the end to find out how to get a free consultation from me, no strings attached. I'll tell you all about that at the end. Or to find out how to get a free detailed guide for putting all of these practices into effect yourself. All right, until then, let's get started. All right, the first thing we need to do is inspect where we are now. We always need to start 30,000 foot view and kind of focus down as we go. So the step one is to really inspect using gtmetrics.com. So this site allows you to put your domain name into a search bar. It'll run a series of tests in the background, and it's gonna tell you how well your site is doing, and if it's not doing very well, what you can do to improve it. A lot of the time it's like images aren't optimized, browser caching isn't enabled, JS isn't minified, a few things we're gonna go through here in just a minute. So we're gonna use this information, but we're just gonna kind of cache it for the moment until we take the next step. So before we address the GT metrics problem, let's talk about plugins, because I guarantee you that plugins are dragging down your site and they're actually contributing to what you're seeing on GT metrics. Because a lot of the time we have way too many plugins that are installed, and a lot of them we aren't even using. And plugins are code at their base, right? And so every time the website has to load, it has to load that code as well. It's probably easier to think of this as books, right? So you have 2 books, you can carry those around pretty easily. You have 3 books, that's a little bit heavier. You have 4, you have 5, you have 10,000. Suddenly it gets a lot heavier to carry, right? And so if you're trying to carry the books from the server to the user's front door every single time, that's really heavy. That's a lot to bring over, right? So it's probably multiple trips. It takes a lot longer. But if you have a lighter load of books, it becomes a lot easier to bring it over to the user. So you want to make sure that you're only using the plugins that you really need, that you are only loading those in when you really need them, and that you're cleaning out everything else, okay? But I do want to caution you that even if you deactivate these plugins, even if you uninstall them completely, that's not a complete solution to the problem, because a lot of the time there's some orphan tables code that still hangs back in WordPress that you need to clean out as well. So we'll get to that in just a minute. All right, now for the big stuff, we're gonna talk about optimization. So the majority of the work can actually be done for you. We're gonna use something called WP Optimize. This is a phenomenal solution. They have a free version, they have a paid version. The paid version is like 50 bucks a year. It's totally worth it. And it's gonna help you to clean this stuff up quickly and keep it clean as we go. So let's just go ahead and walk through that plugin real quick. Okay, so we're in the Level Me Up backend again. Welcome back again. Sure, you've seen it several times at this point. So what I mentioned before, we're going to use WP Optimize to take advantage of this. So WP Optimize is just a plugin, so you just go plug it in like you would with any other plugin. You don't have to do it externally like you would with WP Bakery or something. You can just download it directly. However, if you want to buy the Pro version, then you'll need to upload it. So WP Optimize is right here. And I'm gonna look at a few different things here. And the first place I'm gonna start is the database tab. So the nice thing about the database tab is that it lets you do a lot of different optimizations pretty quickly. So you can just check them all off, run all selected optimizations, and you're pretty much good to go. I mean, it's gonna get rid of unapproved comments. It'll get rid of, ghost orphan tables, all that sort of stuff as well. So it's really a nice fast way of cleaning everything up. You can do a couple of these others as well if you want to, but you're going to get a warning and it's going to tell you that there are some things that it could be a little more intensive and you just want to be careful about it. But nonetheless, it's helpful. If you look at these italics, it's going to tell you what exists for each of these things that it would be optimizing. So if there's nothing there, you don't need to run that optimization anyway. You can probably see that I just ran this
just a minute ago or not long ago. So really there isn't too much to do, but if I wanted to, I could just click everything and just click run all selected optimizations, and it would happen in just a few minutes very quickly. The next thing we want to look at is the images. So the images section is pretty important because there's a lot of different things that you can do here. You see at the top there's compressed images, unused images and sizes, and lazy load. So this allows you to compress all of the images. The upside to that is that it effectively gets them ready for web so that they load faster with web. The downside of it is that it creates duplicates of everything, and it'll only save them for a certain amount of time, so you need to have a way to offload them fairly quickly, which is a bit of a shame because I personally don't like to get rid of stuff. I tend to want to save every little piece of data I can, but you can always offload it, and even though it'll be deleted on your site, it's not a big deal. The nice thing about it is that you can compress kind of like in a JPEG for maximum compression or for best image quality. I typically want to keep it right in the center because that's a very good balance of the two. Okay, so I don't like to go for necessarily best image quality because then you don't save any data space. I don't like to go for maximum compression because then the image looks crappy. So you just need to kind of find a middle ground there. The unused images tab will find unused images, and it'll allow you to delete them fairly quickly. So you can see some of my old website elements here I don't really use anymore. These are obviously still used because that's my logo, but I compressed a lot of these already, and so these are not used anymore. I could probably safely get rid of them. So I could just check them all, and I could just move the selected images to the trash, view the trash. If I wanted to, it'll empty everything out. Nice and easy. Okay. And then the last thing, now this is a pro upgrade. Again, the pro is like 40 or 50 bucks a year. So it's really not that much, but lazy loading is a really effective way of making your site go a little bit faster. So what it does is it doesn't load the entire page at one time. It only loads a little portion of the page. So if you're on the header section, that loads in first. And then as you scroll, it's just kind of running ahead of you a little bit. So it's loading the next section as you get to that section, and then the next after that, and after that. So it's just a way to allow that loading to happen a little bit further out rather than it all needing to happen at one time before the page loads completely. So that's a nice way to make things go a little bit faster. Next thing you want to look at is the cache. So there's a couple of different options here, but just generally speaking, what the cache is, that is allowing data to be stored about the web page so that it doesn't have to reload every single time. It just loads in what's already stored. Now, anybody who's coming new is probably going to have to load it for the first time on their own, but that doesn't mean that when they come back again, it will need to be reloaded again. It just allows it to be a little bit faster and smoother, okay? But there are a lot of other options up here. Most of these are paid options, just so you know. So for instance, preload, you have to get an approval for this, so you can't just run this and make it happen. But the idea here is that you get an approval from an external service to preload your site in so that when they come onto your page, it's already loaded for them. And then you can cache as well, and it kind of just really runs a lot more smoothly. But preloading is a service that you have to use with HSTS. I haven't gotten preloaded myself, so I don't have a whole lot of information about that for you. But once I do, I will let you know. You can exclude certain URLs from being cached. So if you have a member section that's paid only, you would want to include that here. That doesn't mean you need to add every single URL, but if you want everything in /members, for instance, to be excluded, then you just put /members there, and everything from that point on will be excluded. So you don't need to worry about possibly 10,000 pages or something like that. You can just stick to /members, and that'll do the job for you, or whatever else you want to get rid of. There's a lot of other options here as well, but really the big most important parts here are caching that page, getting it preloaded if you can, and excluding anything that you don't want to be included in that cache. Last thing is minify. So minification is, if you've ever seen code where you'll see like a block of code and then enter down and then another block of code and then they press enter and then another block of code and there's like a bunch of spaces in between. All of those spaces are characters as well, which means that every time the web page loads, it has to read those spaces as well as the code itself. So if you can get rid of the spaces, you make the job a lot faster for the web browser. What minification does is that it just takes all of that space information and it just gets rid of it. So it just compresses all of that JavaScript or CSS or whatever code you're working with and just jams it into effectively one line, okay? Because the lines themselves aren't so important. That's more for you to be able to visually understand what's happening. So it's kind of a nice quick process to just cram everything together and make things load a little bit faster, because this is one of the reasons that pages most often load slowly. Now, if you want to, you can be more specific with some of these, or your JavaScript or your CSS or whatever, but let's just simplify it. Let's just enable minification generally, because unless you have a very specific reason to do that, there's really no reason not to want to minify everything. It just makes life a lot easier.
So the last step is to recheck GT metrics. Don't do this immediately. Some of these changes need time to take effect, but you can go back to GT metrics, put your domain back in. It's a free service forever. Just put it in and see what the feedback is. And if there's other improvements to make, then you just follow those down the line as well. There you go, guys. I hope that you found that helpful and that helped you figure out how to speed up your site more. If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you like the video, subscribe to my channel if you're into it, comment and let me know what your GT metrics score was at the beginning. And I mean, even at the end, I'd love to know as a follow-up. I'm just really curious. Otherwise, if you want more information or you want a little checklist to help you figure this out, in the description is a checklist guide that I have that you can just go ahead and go through and make sure that you've covered everything there. That'll really help you to kind of structure this and move through more effectively. Otherwise, if you want a free 1-hour consultation from me, I just have a few requirements to make this happen. This is a charity event, so I really want to make sure that you absolutely need it. You can't afford a marketing consultant right now. That you like, comment, and subscribe on this video just to make sure that that I know that you're interested. And also make sure that you go to my website to fill out the form. I'll have a link in the description for this as well. And just tell me a little bit about what you need and why you need it. I would love to hear from you. I would love to help you. So please make sure that you do that. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next one.